Good morning, everyone. It's Thursday, February 25th, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Kim Mo-kyun. Before we get started, these are the stories we're following at the top of the hour. The first batch of COVID-19 vaccines arrived at local health facilities on Thursday morning, ahead of the nation's first rollout set for Friday. South Korea's central bank has kept its benchmark interest rate unchanged at a record low of 0.5%. South Korea's top diplomat talked on the phone with his Iranian counterpart on Wednesday to call for the release of a Korean tanker and its captain seized by Tehran in January. Our top story this morning, with only a day to go before the nation's COVID-19 inoculation program begins, South Korea confirmed 396 new COVID-19 cases Thursday, with 5 more deaths being reported. As infections continue, authorities are gearing up vaccination preparations, with the first batch of vaccines having arrived at local health facilities just hours ago. Now, for more, let's turn to our Ji-young, who is at one of the health centers where the transferred vaccines have arrived. Ji-young, how's it looking over there?
Mo-kyun, I'm outside a health center in Suwon City, Gyeonggi-do Province, and this is where some of the first inoculations will be administered at 9 a.m. on Friday. And just about an hour ago, the country's first batch of COVID-19 vaccines developed by AstraZeneca has arrived and is being stored ready to be administered. Shots are being delivered to some 1,900 care homes and hospitals nationwide today, while being protected by firefighters as well as armed personnel from the military. They're being transferred using cars and trucks with refrigerated containers from the distribution center in Icheon, Gyeonggi-do Province. About 1.57 million doses of vaccines, enough to inoculate 785,000 people, are to be delivered across the country. In order for the vaccination to begin smoothly on Friday, South Korea's health authorities are closely monitoring the situation. Take a listen.
At the health center, we have a refrigerator just for the vaccines being used for inoculation. An auto-call function is installed on it so that we can closely monitor the situation 24 hours a day.
Those to be vaccinated first are residents and staff at care centers and hospitals under the age of 65. The number of eligible people who are willing to be vaccinated is about 289,000, including those at nursing hospitals and rehabilitation facilities, making up about 94% of the entire eligible population. Those who can visit will be vaccinated at the health centers, and medical staff will visit care centers and rehabilitation facilities where doctors are not present. That's all from now. That's all from me now, and I'll bring more updates in our later newscast. Back to you, Mo-kyun.
Thank you for that update, Ji-young. Now, with the national inoculation program set to begin this week, some citizens are still expressing concerns over the vaccine's safety. Now, this is why the KDCA chief held a special briefing to address such matters. Our Han Sung-woo brings us the highlights from that session.
The Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency sought to ease any vaccine concerns among the public during a briefing Wednesday, saying most adverse reactions to COVID-19 vaccines reported overseas in the United States, Britain, and elsewhere faded within a few days. The reported reactions include pain in the injected area, fatigue, headaches, and rash. Health experts also said that other than anaphylaxis, which can be properly treated with early diagnosis, no other critical reactions can be linked to the vaccines.
No causal link has been reported between the vaccines and facial paralysis and cases of death. And anaphylaxis, a serious allergic reaction which can appear in different ways depending on the person, is rare among those who've been vaccinated.
Officials also addressed public concerns surrounding the AstraZeneca vaccine's safety, saying the shots do meet safety and efficacy standards.
For reference, an interval of 8 to 12 weeks is recommended between doses for the AstraZeneca vaccine. The Pfizer shots will be given with 3 weeks in between.
Recent research published in British medical journal The Lancet showed that AstraZeneca's efficacy rate rises from 55% to 81% when the dose interval is widened from up to 6 weeks to 3 months. Meanwhile, experts outright rejected rumors of the government planting chips in people through the shots in order to monitor them.
As a man of science, I think it's a shame that these concerns exist. Monitoring people by inserting chips, as far as I know, that's not even scientifically possible right now.
Professor Choi says that people should not have their judgment clouded by disinformation. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
South Korea's health authorities have released guidelines to inform people about the possible side effects of COVID-19 vaccinations and what to do when such symptoms have been observed. The Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency listed some of the most common side effects, which include injection site pain, swelling, fever, fatigue, headaches, and more. It said the effects may vary depending on the vaccine brand, and most are expected to dissipate within 3 days. But those with severe reactions are advised to immediately call 119 or visit a hospital. The UK's Deputy Chief Medical Officer says the number of British citizens being vaccinated against COVID-19 each day is slowing due to supply fluctuations. Our Lee Seung-jae tells us more.
After becoming the first country to begin a mass COVID-19 vaccination program, the UK is now seeing a slowdown in the number of people getting vaccinated each day. According to the UK's Deputy Chief Medical Officer Jonathan Van Tam, the drop in vaccinations is due to supply fluctuations, adding it will take a few months before vaccine manufacturers are able to produce doses in a steady routine. He also raised concerns that global supply restraints have also hampered the rollout. So far, nearly 18 million Britons have received at least one dose. However, the nation's daily total has dropped since topping 15 million earlier this month. By comparison, the country saw some 192,000 doses being administered this past Monday, compared to over 275,000 a week prior. Meanwhile, AstraZeneca has told the EU that it expects to deliver less than half of the vaccines it was contracted to supply in the second quarter. According to an EU official involved with the talks, the drug maker told the bloc during internal meetings that it would deliver less than 90 million doses in the second quarter, as opposed to the 180 million doses initially promised. However, AstraZeneca says the company is working to increase productivity in its EU supply chain in order to meet the 180 million delivery in the second quarter. In China, the country has decided to vaccinate the general public aged 19 to 59 earlier than expected. The decision comes as Beijing decided the current rate was slower than expected and wanted to expand the number of vaccinations as much as possible. While China had planned to inoculate 50 million people with its two-dose regimen before the Lunar New Year holiday, they only managed 40 million. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea's central bank has kept its benchmark interest rate unchanged at a record low of 0.5%. The rate freeze likely comes as the bank aims to maintain its expansionary policy to offset the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. But despite the pandemic, further cuts might be seen as counterproductive amid rising property prices and the boom in household debt. The Bank of Korea cut its key interest rate to the record low of 0.5% last May. The central bank has also kept its GDP growth forecast for this year at 3%, same as the previous forecast made in November last year. International banks have increased their U.S. GDP growth estimate for 2021 and 2022. U.S. President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion stimulus package has contributed to the boost. Our business correspondent, Seo Eun-kyung, reports.
British bank HSBC has raised its forecast for U.S. GDP to 5% in 2021 from 3.5% on Wednesday local time. It also has increased the forecast for 2022 to 3% from 2.5%. Bank of America also has increased their estimate for 2021 and 2022 U.S. GDP growth on Monday Washington time. The estimate has gone up to 6.5% from 6%. The bank has increased its economic growth forecast for 2022 GDP growth to 5% from 4.5%. Anticipation ahead of the near $2 trillion pandemic stimulus package has contributed to the upgrade. President Joe Biden's package contains 4 major provisions. If approved, it would provide stimulus payments to eligible recipients. $1,400 per person under certain income thresholds and $1,400 per eligible dependents, which include households with mixed immigration status. The stimulus package would provide $400 to jobless and extend payments through September. The plan will also inject money into schools to help with reopening and make them safer to attend. The federal minimum wage will be gradually boosted to $15 an hour by 2025 from the current $7.25. Vaccinations and more coronavirus testing would also be possible with the stimulus package. The House Budget Committee approved the COVID-19 stimulus bill on Monday. By Sunday, the House plans to pass its version of the bill on to the Senate. This could then be sent on to Biden for approval by March 14th. 서은경, Arirang News.
The top diplomats of South Korea and Iran spoke Wednesday, during which Seoul's foreign minister urged his counterpart in Tehran to release a South Korean oil tanker and its captain. The South Korean government says it's sincerely exerting full efforts to release Iran's frozen assets in the country. Our Kim Hyo-sun reports.
South Korea's top diplomat has been on the phone with his Iranian counterpart, calling for the prompt release of a South Korean tanker and its captain seized by Tehran in its seas in early January over alleged sea pollution. South Korean Foreign Minister Jong-un explained that Seoul is exerting sincere efforts to release Iran's frozen assets in the country, something that had been requested by Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif. The dialogue comes a day after Iran said it had reached a deal with Seoul on the transfer and use of $7 billion of its funds locked in South Korean banks due to U.S. sanctions. To this, the South Korean government later announced that the two parties have agreed in principle to the proposals it has made to Tehran on how to use the funds, but stressed the release can only take place following consultations with Washington. In Iran, the country's central bank governor reportedly claimed that Tehran will have Seoul transfer $1 billion of its assets locked in the country. According to Iran's state news agency, he elaborated that Tehran has issued a payment order for the frozen funds, adding it will initiate legal proceedings according to international law if Seoul refuses to pay up. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Chairing a Central Military Commission meeting on Wednesday, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un called for stricter control over military officials. The North state-run news agency reported Thursday that Kim underlined the importance of establishing revolutionary moral discipline, particularly among the younger generations. The leader also reportedly called for intensified education and control with the aim of providing commanding officers of the new generation with proper political consciousness. Also included on the meeting's agenda was dismissal and new appointments of commanding officers, including Defense Minister Kim Jong-un, who was promoted to Vice Marshal. The United States has vowed to support human rights in countries including North Korea. The pledge was made during Washington's announcement of intent to return to the United Nations top human rights body. Our Choi Min-jung reports.
The United States has underlined the importance of protecting human rights in countries including North Korea in its pledge to rejoin the UN Human Rights Council. Speaking to the 47-member body by video on Wednesday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken stressed that the Council must support the fight against injustice led by human rights violators, one of which is North Korea. The Biden administration's top diplomats shed light on the North's human rights issues, with many considering that the regime's human rights issues were swept under the rug during Trump's presidency. Although North Korea wasn't the only country in the spotlight, watchers say the remarks are significant, considering the regime was taken into importance during the U.S. comeback stage in 3 years to the global human rights body. Seeking to rejoin the Council starting next year, Blinken asked for the support of all UN members.
I'm pleased to announce the United States will seek election to the Human Rights Council for the 2022 to 2024 term. We humbly ask for the support of all UN member states in our bid to return to a seat in this body.
The Biden administration's vow to work with allies to protect human rights is the latest move to reverse Trump's policies. The U.S. quit the Council in 2018 during President Trump's time in office and is currently an observer. Elections are set to take place in October. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Good morning. Those in southern regions will need an umbrella today. Rain should begin from the west coast of Jeju province this morning before spreading to the rest of the southern parts of the country throughout the day. So Jeju and mountainous regions on Jeju will receive rain through Saturday, but the rest of the south will not have enough to ease the dryness in the air. Do expect 5 to 40 millimeters of rainfall. So northeast regions will continue to endure dry conditions, while winds will get stronger in the afternoon along the south coast and Jeju, where a preliminary strong wind advisory has been issued. So it's going to be a rough, rainy day for Jeju today. Highs in most regions will be similar to a tad lower than yesterday. Seoul will make it to 9 degrees with lots of clouds, while Busan will be topping out at 12 degrees this afternoon. And again, this weekend is shaping up to be a real mild one. Then nationwide precipitation will add much needed humidity to the air next Monday. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that's a wrap for us at the hour on Arirang News. We'll be back with more of the day's headlines at noon Korea time, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
COVID-19 vaccinations in Korea are to begin on February 20.